It's not just about ideas, it's about making ideas happen to it.
Good morning, students. It's almost been 2 months that we have been learning this way. Everything is changed. We had to leave our friends with whom we had countless memories, and we left with this sudden void and mess. This is what others think. But as Springdalians, what we think? We think that the world is healing, the pollution is being cleared off, the equilibrium is being restored. We are spending time with our families, we are taking care of our health, and above all, we have realized the humanity. We can feel the pain of the people who have been uprooted from their homes. And there are so many lessons to take on from there: love, compassion, health, and how to embrace uncertainty. And as Springdalians, you have proved that you have taken best out of the situation. You adapted e-learning so well that your participation and enthusiasm motivate us to make our e-lessons better every time. So today again, we have come up with another video of the chapter, The Address by Maga Minko from the book Snapshot. So let's start with that.
Before starting the chapter, it is important to know the terms, the Holocaust and the concentration camp, and its effects. The Holocaust was a World War II genocide of the European Jews. Between 1941 and 1945, across German occupied Europe, Nazi Germany and its collaborators systematically murdered some 6 million Jews, around two-thirds of the Europe Jewish population. To know more about the Holocaust and the concentration camp, let's watch this video.
Century of War, the monument to human cruelty, Auschwitz-Birkenau. A 19-year-old Polish youth was arrested in 1940 for his anti-Nazi activities and brought to Auschwitz concentration camp number 1. He was prisoner number 6804. Nazi Germany invaded Poland and built the Auschwitz concentration camp number 1 to imprison civilians of Polish nationality. Arbeit macht frei means work makes you free. Working in this camp actually led people to almost certain death. Prisoners were forced to do heavy construction work and other physically demanding labor in the boiling heat of summer and intense cold of winter. Most were unable to withstand such harsh conditions and died within 3 months. Each barrack was packed with from 700 to 1,000 prisoners. At its peak, 5 people had to share the same bed. These holes were toilets. People who became infected with diseases such as typhoid were regarded as useless and killed without mercy.
Dlatego, że praca tutaj to była praca niewolnicza.
The Nazis worked us hard, beat us up and shot the sick ones to death. For the first 2 years of operation, the Nazis tried to eliminate us Poles using labor as an excuse. Prisoner number 6804 was also sent to Block 11, known as the Death Block. Prisoners who showed even the slightest sign of resistance to the Nazis were sent here to be executed or tortured, which often resulted in death. This is the standing cell for torturing prisoners. 4 people were crammed into a 90-centimeter square cell and forced to remain standing for days. Under suspicion of communicating with an anti-Nazi activist, he was confined in the dark cell, a cell without light. He could hear sounds outside through the small air holes. They were connected to the wall just beside the death wall, where executions by firing squad took place. Almost 10,000 Polish people were killed at the death wall. Auschwitz concentration camp started its history by detaining and torturing Polish people. It later developed into a Jewish genocide facility.
An overview of the chapter. The Address by Maga Minko narrates the story of a lady, possibly the author herself. The story is about the human predicament that follows the pre-war and post-war period. Mrs. S., who was a Jew, was a rich lady, whereas Mrs. Dolling was a non-Jew. The girl, daughter of Mrs. S., had lost her house and her mother during the war, and now she had decided to go back to take her possessions from Mrs. Dolling, an acquaintance whose address was given by her mother years ago. When she reached the house, the woman treated her with a cold reception and didn't let her into the house. In a second attempt, the author rings the doorbell of Mrs. Dolling's house, only to be welcomed by her daughter. When they were crossing the passage, the protagonist noticed the Hanukkah candle stand that they had never used because it had been unmanageable. When she reached the living room, she was horrified as she saw all her mother's things that were arranged in a tasteless manner. The furniture was ugly and the room had a muggy smell, and it made her disinterested and she wanted to leave the place. Mrs. Dolling's daughter offered her a cup of tea, and the protagonist noticed the old tablecloth that had a burn mark on it. When the girl was showing her the silver fork and spoons that actually belonged to her mother, she jumped up and walked out of the house. She decided not to visit the place again, as it brought back memories of the past, and hence she decided to forget the address. A few years back, while I was flipping through the pages of Class Plus One English textbook, I came across a chapter, The Address, that has inspired me quite significantly with its simplistic storytelling.
A striking feature of this story is the sheer ease with which the author has portrayed a multitude of emotions, right from the betrayal to melancholy, and everything in between. The story by Maga Minko, a Dutch journalist, reiterates the fact that dwelling in the past only ends up adding to the emotional turmoil a person might be going through in his or her life. The story further brings to the light that as soon as we accept something and move on in life, the better we are bound to feel. Accepting something not only makes us feel better emotionally, it also helps us to concentrate on the opportunities that might come our way in the not so distant future. Let's go through the explanation of the chapter in detail. Explanation of the first paragraph. The protagonist asked the woman standing at the door if she still knew her. The lady had opened the door a little, and the protagonist came closer to the door and stood there. The woman responded negatively, and the protagonist still gave her introduction. She said she was Mrs. S.'s daughter. The woman had held the door tightly as she didn't want her to enter the house. She kept staring at the protagonist, though she couldn't recognize her. Firstly, she thought maybe she had come to the wrong address. She had seen the woman only for a short time years ago. The woman who answered the door stood aside and let go of the door. She recognized her mother's green knitted cardigan that the woman was wearing, and this was the first thing that she recognized that belonged to her mother. The wooden buttons have become pale because of the washing, which means that she wore it many times. The woman noticed the girl looking at the cardigan. She hid behind the door. Now, the protagonist knew she had come to the right address. The girl asked the woman about her mother. The woman asked her if she had come back. She replied, no one else came with her. The woman opened the door and a passage was behind her. A stale smell occurred all over. The woman told her that she could not do anything for her. The protagonist told her that she had come from far place on the train just to talk to her. The woman told her it is not convenient to talk right now and asked her to come back later. The woman closed the door and she didn't want anyone to get disturbed in the house. The girl was still standing on the step. She saw a curtain moving on the window way. Someone was staring at her from inside the house. She thought it was nothing, as told by the woman. She looked at the number plate again. It said number 46. Darling was written on the plate on white enamel. As she was going back to the station, she was thinking about her mother who gave her the address. It was the first half of the war. She was home for a few days and suddenly it struck her that the room was different now. Various things were missing. Her mother was surprised that she noticed the changes a little later. It was that time when she told her about this woman, Mrs. Darling. She was an old contact of hers whom she hadn't seen for years. Suddenly she came to visit her and since then they had been in regular contact. Actually, Mrs. S., the narrator's mother, and Mrs. Darling had known each other for quite some time. So when Mrs. Darling offered to take away Mrs. S.'s things to safely keep them till the war last, Mrs. S. readily agreed in good faith. Little did she knew that Mrs. Darling's suggestion was actuated by her greed more than her desire to help an acquaintance. What is more, instead of feeling happy on seeing Mrs. S.'s daughter, Mrs. Darling appeared to be shocked and surprised to see her. She had not expected the return of the narrator or her mother. She had taken them for dead. Having been the custodian of the narrator's mother's belongings for years, she had become greedy and took them to be her own. Apparently, she had made full use of the narrator's mother's belongings, and now her greed and selfishness stood in the way of her returning them to the rightful owner. Her mother told her that whenever Mrs. Darling came to visit her, she took something from the house with her. Table silvers, antique plates, even she had trouble over carrying the large vase. She told her that the cramp in her back came from the crockery. Her mother shook her head in sorrow. The woman kept telling the protagonist's mother that she wanted to save her precious things. If they had to leave the place someday, they would lose everything. She asked her mother if she really wanted her to take all the things with her. Her mother replied that even if she didn't, it would be an insult to ask her not to. She was going out with a risk to be arrested with a heavy suitcase full of items. Her mother noticed that she wasn't convinced and looked at her critically. After that day, they never talked about the incident again. She reached the station without noticing any details on the way. She passed the familiar things after the war for the first time. She didn't want to upset herself with the familiar sights of the houses and the streets that reminded her of all the precious times. Back in the time, she saw Mrs. Darling in person a day after her mother told her about her. She woke up late that morning and she was going downstairs. She saw her, the lady with broad back. Her mother was seeing her out. Her mother introduced her to the lady. She signaled to her, and the woman responded with a nod. She picked the suitcase under the coat rack. She was wearing a brown coat and a shapeless hat. The girl asked her mother if she lived far away. This was the time her mother gave her the address of Mrs. Darling. Marconi Street, number 46. It's very important. Marconi Street, number 46. And she remembered it. She remembered the address, but she took too long to visit the place. After the freedom, she was on one hand not interested and on the other hand was afraid. She was afraid of getting confronted with the past memories and connections that no longer existed. Connections were hidden in cupboards and boxes. It seemed that those memories were waiting in vain to put them back to their place, as they had suffered all these years because they were only things. The narrator was of the view that her mother's belongings would be lying hidden away in cupboards and boxes, and waiting endlessly in vain to be put back in their place. Unlike human beings, these things, the narrator felt, had endured so many years because they were things. She thought so because her mother had told her that Mrs. Darling would keep them with her safely till the time that she and her mother returned. Things were getting normal in the narrator's life. But one day, she got curious about all the things that were still at that address, Marconi Street, number 46. She wanted to see them and touch them. After the first hopeless visit, she decided to try one more time. When she reached Mrs. Darling's home for the second time, a girl of 15 years opened the door. Protagonist asked her about her mother. She told her that she was outside doing some errands, to which the protagonist decided that she would wait for her. The narrator followed the girl along the passage. There was a Hanukkah candle holder hung next to a mirror. She remembered that she never used it as it was unmanageable. The girl asked her to sit down. As she opened the door for the living room, she stopped and she was horrified. She was standing in a room which she knew and she didn't. Do you know why she was horrified? Because inside the living room, she saw herself standing amidst her mother's belongings. All those things that she had come to see, but strangely these oppressed her because they were in unfamiliar and strange atmosphere. Moreover, they were very tastelessly arranged among ugly and untidy surroundings. She was scared to look at everything. She sat down on a chair, which the girl pulled out for her. She looked at the woolen tablecloth. She rubbed it, and her fingers felt warm. As she followed the lines of the pattern, she remembered a burn mark that was never repaired. The girl told her that mother would be back soon and asked if she would like to have a cup of tea. She answered, "Thank you." The narrator looked up. She saw the girl put 2 cups of tea in front of her. She had a broad back, just like her mother. She poured tea from the teapot and it had a gold border on the lid. She opened a box and took some spoons out of it. The narrator complimented the girl about the box. She felt weird hearing her own voice. It was sounding different to her. As the girl turned to give her a cup, she asked if she knew about the box. Then she added that it is antique, according to her mother. She pointed around the room and said that there are more. She told her to see, although the protagonist didn't need to follow her direction. She knew what she was talking about. She glanced over the tea table. She remembered how she used to fancy the apple on the pewter plate. The girl shared that they use the plate for everything. Once they ate off the plates that were hanging on the wall. The girl wanted to eat off that plate too, but it wasn't anything special. The narrator found the burn mark on the tablecloth. The girl looked at her in a question. The narrator said yes and told her that when you are so used to touching things into your house, you hardly notice anything. You only notice when something is missing, or it needs to be repaired, or because you have lent it. She again found her voice to be unnatural. She continued. She told the girl that once her mother asked her if she would help her polish the silver. It was a long time ago, and she was bored that day. She had to stay that day, maybe as she was ill. She asked her mother what silver she is talking about. Her mother said it was the spoons, knives, and forks. But she didn't know that it was silver. The narrator didn't know that the crockery they were using was of silver. The girl laughed and said that she bet she didn't know it was either with what they ate with. The protagonist asked if she knew. The girl hesitated and walked to the sideboard and opened a drawer. She said she would see if it was there. The narrator was oppressed to see her mother's belongings in strange surroundings. She didn't like the fact that someone else was using them. She didn't want to see them again because all the things had lost their values. The narrator jumped and said she forgot the time as she had to catch the train. The girl asked her if she didn't want to wait for her mother. The protagonist still replied with a no and said she must leave. The girl pulled the drawer open. The protagonist said she could find her way out and walked down the passage as she heard the ringing spoon of spoons and forks. When she reached the corner of the road, she looked at the nameplate again. It said Marconi Street, and she was standing at the number 46. The address was correct, but she doesn't want to remember it anymore. Do you know why the narrator resolved to forget the address? Because she didn't want to come back to the objects that evoked memories of her earlier life and precious times. Besides, she could not possibly keep them in her small rented accommodation. She decided to leave the past behind and move on. And she thought that forgetting would be the easiest thing. Vocabulary from the chapter The Address. The story clearly brings to light the fact that holding on to the past can be an extremely painful exercise. It goes without saying that forgetting the moments and the experiences that torment you can be a really daunting task. But once you accept your past wholeheartedly, you tend to get a big weight off your back. The author, despite being attached to the memories of her past, had the courage to leave them behind in order to make a fresh beginning. The Address by Maga Minko is indeed an inspiring story which sheds an adequate amount of light on the importance of letting things go. It further reiterates that both past and future are illusions, and all we have with us is the present.
Я счастливый, что я могу вас видеть, с вами разговаривать. Это для меня большое дело.
Спасибо
Я уже
огромное.
2 ночи не сплю, потому что я жду вас.
Я
Я
обещал.
счастливый, что я могу с вами говорить и вас видеть. Хороший парень.
This is one of the last opportunities that we'll have to witness something like this. I feel like we're kind of touching a piece of history. This reunion between Eliyahu and his nephew, who came immediately to meet him from Russia when the revelation was made, happened thanks to the information that they found, that Eliyahu's grandson found on Yad Hashem's central database of Shoah victims' names.
Сейчас вы знаете, что есть большая фамилия здесь, в Израиле.
Да.
Вы не будете самотны. Имейте целую.
Нормально. Все нормально. Все нормально. Нормально. Нормально.